All right, boys. So this is our first lesson on the physics unit. So in this lesson, by the end of it, you should be able to define a force. Second objective is name the unit force is measured in and calculate the force exerted by a mass. All right, so those are objectives. Let's jump straight into it. A force is a pushing or pulling on an object created by interaction with another object. So the two parts you need to take notice of here is pushing and pulling, and one object on another object. So when we're looking at forces, what we need to be looking for is a pushing or pulling, and it needs to be between at least two objects. So here we go. Here's a man and here's a block. He is pulling, and the two objects interacting is a man and the block. Here's another man, and he's also interacting with the block. He's pushing, and there's an interaction between two blocks. So the force is being created between them. Now, to clarify, a force does not necessarily mean that the object moves. So these two guys can be pushing and pulling on the block, but if it's cemented into the ground, it's not going to move. A force is just the pushing and pulling. It doesn't mean that something has to move. All right, cool. So what unit do we measure it in? So what do I mean by unit? When we measure anything, we need to measure it in units. So if we measure length, we measure it in meters. If we measure weight, we measure it in kilograms. If we measure temperature, we do it in degrees Celsius. Or if we measure angles, we use degrees. So the unit we measure forces, when we measure how strong the push and pull is, we use newtons, or capital N to represent it. So we use newtons to measure force. So if something is pushed or pulled with a force, we can say it is pushed with an amount of newtons. It's pushed with 10 newtons, 50 newtons, 100 newtons. Newtons is just the force to measure it with. Okay, and it's named after this guy, a British scientist called Sir Isaac Newton. And there, obviously, Newton's named after him. All right, so now let's talk about this idea of kilograms and newtons. How are they connected? How are they different? Well, when you're standing on Earth, you have mass, which means you're made of matter, okay? And when you're standing on Earth, gravity pulls on anything that has mass. So if you're standing on Earth and you weigh 10 kilograms, what that means is Earth is pulling on those 10 kilograms with a certain number of newtons. So a force is a pulling, so we should be able to work out how much force Earth is pulling on anything if we know how many kilograms it is. So what we do is gravity pulls down on anything that has mass. To calculate the force that gravity is pulling down on, we just need to multiply by 10. So we take the kilograms, how many kilograms it is, we multiply by 10, and that's going to tell us how many newtons it is being pulled down with. So for example, I weigh 96 kilograms, so we times that by 10, and now we know that the Earth is pulling me down with 960 newtons of force. So how do we get from kilograms to newtons? We times by 10. Now remember, this only works for the force of gravity pulling down. We can't work out how hard a soccer ball hit you or how hard a soccer ball is pushing on your face if we times the weight of the soccer ball by 10. That's not how it works. It's only when we're calculating the force gravity is pulling with. So 1 kilogram is 10 newtons, 10 kilograms is 100 newtons, and 5 kilograms is 50 newtons. So in your notes, I've provided a space for all of this. So what I'd like you guys to do is to write down how you convert and write down the answers to the questions there. And then I gave you a few more just to practice on your notes, okay? So right now you should be able to define a force, name the unit force is measured in, and calculate the force exerted by a mass. So right now what I'd like you to do is pause, and I'd like you to look at these definitions and use a highlighter to just go through your notes again and just highlight the key points to show that you can do these three objectives before you move on to the questions in the Google form. All right, good luck, boys. Have a good one. Cheers.